The gentleman from New York, Mr. Nadler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, President Trump has launched an all-out assault on the press. Don't take my word for it. Here is the president himself.
Trump publicly attacking ABC News, going so far as to suggest it should lose its federal broadcast license. They've discussed issuing subpoenas for news organizations, prosecuting journalists and their sources, and cutting funding for public media.
I think you have to do it. I'm going to be bringing one against the people in Iowa, their newspaper. We're filing one on 60 Minutes, a big part of CBS News, against Bob Woodward. And we have one, very interestingly, on Pulitzer. We have to straighten out the press.
The president says we have to, quote, straighten out the press. That should be chilling to anyone who believes in the First Amendment. The Trump administration is already targeting media outlets that refuse to praise the president. Yesterday, the White House barred the Associated Press from the Oval Office because the news organization simply declined to change its style guide to call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. Trump himself has made it abundantly clear that he thinks any journalist who dares to criticize him is a, quote, enemy of the people. He has even threatened to revoke the broadcast licenses, we just saw that, of news organizations that criticize his administration. This assault on free speech is being orchestrated by Trump's pick for FCC chair, Brendan Carr, a right-wing co-author of Project 2025. Carr is using his position to punish the news outlets that diverge from the White House's approved narrative. Acting in violation of the Constitution, federal law, and the ICC's own mission, Chairman Carr has decided to use the agency to harass and intimidate news organizations that stray from the White House's talking points. One of Carr's first actions was to revive 3 complaints made to the FCC by a conservative group, the Center for American Rights, against ABC, CBS, and NBC for their critical coverage of President Trump. For the record, there was a complaint that Carr didn't revive. Of course, it was a claim made against Fox News, a news organization that agreed to pay an $800 million settlement to a private company, Dominion Voting System, and admitted to promoting false claims of fraud during the 2020 election related to the company's voting machines. Mr. Aaron, what message is Brendan Carr and the administration sending by investigating ABC, CBS, and NBC, but not Fox News?
Thank you, Congressman, for the question. I think this is, a blatant abuse of power from Commissioner Carr. He's saying, we're coming for you. At the same time, the president is literally negotiating a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit settlement, and he has pulled out all the stops. He said, I might not approve your merger. He said, I want to see the transcripts. He's come back again and again and again. I just imagine when a Democratic FCC chair thought about, like, hey, could we do an independent local study? Everyone was up in arms. Here we have the chairman of the FCC saying, I'm going to use the power of my office to squeeze these news organizations either to settle or change or transform their coverage simply because the president and Mr. Carr don't like it. That's textbook government censorship.
Thank you. Mr. Aaron, the former chair of the FCC, Mr. Carr's predecessor, Jessica Rosenworcel, said these complaints, quote, seek to weaponize the licensing authority of the FCC in a way that is fundamentally at odds with the First Amendment. To do so would set a dangerous precedent, close quote. She also warned that the agency, quote, should not be the president's speech police. When Mr. Carr was before the Oversight Committee last Congress, he was asked a very simple question. If the president directed the FCC to revoke ABC or NBC's broadcast license because he felt they were being unfair to him, would you comply? The answer should have been a simple and resounding no, yet Mr. Carr repeatedly refused to answer. Mr. Aaron, what do you see as some of the most dangerous actions this administration is currently taking to attack the freedom of the press and to silence critics of this administration?
Well, Mr. Nadler, I appreciate your lifting up the FCC because this is an agency that people don't necessarily know a lot about, but it has an incredible amount of power over the public airwaves, over the wires that bring us our cable television. And so far, in his short time in office, Chairman Carr has used that position to go after journalists, to file these very threatening letters questioning how individual reporters are covering stories of national importance, to really abuse this power in ways that we've never seen before. The FCC usually talks about licenses on very narrow terms. If an owner has committed major crimes, maybe there'll be an investigation in their license. The idea that a news organization could be threatened because they asked a tough question of the president, because they tried to fact check him during a debate, because they edited their own news content before putting it out over the airwaves is preposterous, and it's dangerous. And I think it does really warrant the attention of this committee, because it's quickly getting out of hand. He's expanding this. He's started to go after cable companies to investigate their internal corporate practices. This is all happening, and it only seems to be speeding up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Mr. Schellenberger, is the press afraid to attack President Trump?
No.
I mean, you can look at the front page of Politico. Every headline is an attack on President Trump, but that's what the ranking member of the subcommittee just said. Like, they're afraid. I mean, ridiculous argument. I yield to the gentleman. I recognize the gentleman from Arizona.